What if you were the living embodiment of all pervasive peace? What if all sentient beings all around you increased their vibration towards harmony by merely being in your contact? What if through conscious reasoning, focused will, and intentional living, you reform yourself, thereby becoming a catalyst and sparking transformation in others? I'm Shilpa Lewis, meditation and mindfulness coach for midlife mompreneurs, and you are listening to Omnipresent Awareness, the podcast that will inspire you to use your story to serve humanity in not just healing, but thriving as souls, each fulfilling their highest purpose. Welcome to Omnipresent Awareness with Shilpa. This is your host, Shilpa Lewis, owner and founder of Omni Mindfulness Coaching. Before we get started, if you haven't already booked a free discovery session with me, click on the link in the description. I'm a holistic transformational life coach, specializing in helping midlife mompreneurs bring balance, clarity, and life alignment, both personally and professionally, so that you may live your best life. There is tremendous healing value in simply being able to know someone is holding authentic space for you to listen and be accessible as an accountability partner and mentor. If you feel overwhelmed, or if you feel the need for some support navigating life as a mother or as an entrepreneur, I would love to provide you with my coaching. If any anecdotes from the stories of the guests from this episode or any of the podcast episodes resonate with you, or if you find any value at all from the content from these episodes, then consider booking a free discovery call with me. Together, we can manifest my vision to be instrumental in the biggest rise in consciousness and awareness and human transformation. And now, here is today's episode. Next up, author of The Centered Teacher, Julia Yu. Julia is a new teacher support specialist, MindBodyHeart Coach, and founder of Breathe from the Heart. Julia is also a certified meditation teacher, health and life coach, mindfulness educator, and mind-body therapy practitioner. She received her master's degree in English education from Teachers College, Columbia University. Julia went into teaching to become a positive force in the world. But after suffering from chronic stress, the emotional, mental, and physical toll led her to burnout. She eventually took the lesson she learned and created a heart-centered community for educators who are open to seeing meditation, centering, and compassion practices as a powerful way of building compassionate presence and creating a more heart-centered classroom. More recently, Julia published her book, The Centered Teacher, and created a professional development series to guide and support new teachers on an empowering journey. Julia loves creating programs that strengthens the mind-body-heart connection. She believes that tapping into intelligence that lives inside of us allows us to transform our inner and outer landscape so we can see life as a gift full of possibilities. And now, here's Julia. Welcome, Julia.
Thank you. It's such an honor to be here.
It's such an honor to have you. So I wanted to start off by sharing that you have a book, and could you share a little more about the book?
Sure. So the title of my book is The Centered Teacher. It's a mind-body-heart approach to overcoming fear and anxiety. And it's also a companion book for what I call the Find Your Center Signature series. So it allows for new teachers especially to be able to handle whatever comes their way in a way that allows for the mind, the body, and the heart to integrate so that they can access their wiser self.
And your background is in teaching, correct?
Yes. After I graduated from the undergraduate studies, I actually became a social studies teacher. And then I also got certified as an English teacher. So I taught for quite a few years.
And could you share a little more about how you've applied any of this as a mom, or perhaps even a mompreneur?
Yeah, I mean, finding your center used to be a phrase that I would just hear and never really understood. And, where is your center and what does finding your center really do for you? But it's something that can be really life enhancing and life changing that anyone, especially moms, can do at any time. Because when we feel overwhelmed or frustrated, we just want to scream, or whether it's at our kids or whether it's into a pillow, it just, but we become habituated to a certain way of reacting. And so finding your center allows for a different way of responding to a situation. So if a mom is used to always just screaming at their kid, or if a teacher does the same thing, the finding your center is kind of a way to just kind of train yourself to just press that pause button and just give your body and your mind and your heart a chance to just kind of step back a little.
And you found this useful not only as a teacher, but obviously even as a mom, right?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I have 2 teenage kids, and there's moments when I've really lost it. And there's when I found out about finding your center, I really committed to training myself and practicing that. And now I mentally and physically, I'll just sometimes just literally like point my finger in the air, like I'm pressing the pause button. And then I'll just allow myself to take that breath, create that space so that I can just calm down a little bit and I can talk with my kids when I'm calmer versus like when I'm really angry.
And something in your book came to mind when you said pressing that pause. Have you noticed that when you're able to go into that centered space, if others respond in the light, is there a shift in the energy with others, such as your children?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, the energy in my house has really shifted because my son was always on the screen. I mean, he would sneak it around at night, he would sneak it around early in the morning, no matter what kind of rules or guidelines I created. And now it's different. Now it's not about controlling him and controlling his behavior. It's just about being curious and being compassionate and just seeing him as this, I see him as this golden light. Like, like that's just how I see his spirit. And I just know in my heart that he has a really good heart, but that his behaviors are just not, just compatible with the way he really is at times. And so it's just kind of showing compassion for him and just kind of also just showing compassion for myself sometimes, because it's not easy being a mom and trying to, raise a kid who is not addicted to screens.
So it sounds like you're able to take the witness perspective, just like you would in meditation, and
Yeah,
bring compassion.
yeah, it's not easy. I mean, we'll lose our center all the time. There's just no question that, sometimes our old reactive self will come out, but it's more about being able to just kind of catch ourselves, like the first step is just to catch ourselves.
And do you feel that by catching yourself, you're slowly rewiring your brain? Does it get easier?
Yeah. It's just the rewiring of the brain. It's also just rewiring of the whole body, because something that I talk about in my book is called the internal thermometer. It's like when we feel that like flustered or anger coming up, like we feel heat in our body. And so just kind of noticing that can also help to just realize that we need to just cool down a little bit before proceeding.
And that's one of the fascinating things I've enjoyed about your book in regards to the mind-body connection. and understanding that at times it's not just enough to hear your thoughts and react to them thinking I'm angry, but maybe also, like you described, the heat. Can you go a little bit more deeper into how you can help the body heal through the process of getting centered?
Yeah. So when we become activated, there's something that happens within our nervous system. There's the autonomic nervous system, and there's the parasympathetic and the sympathetic. And I'm not going to go into all those like scientific type of terms, but essentially what we have to do is to bring our nervous system back into a state of calm. And the best and easiest way to do that is through an exhale. And so when we take those deep, intentional breaths, those conscious ones, not just like, any breath is helpful, but when you are very aware of the breath that you are taking, then it kind of releases that energy and it releases everything that just doesn't serve you in that moment if you do it very consciously. And once again, this is a process you've got to train yourself for. It takes practice and it takes commitment, but once you start to see the little benefits from it, you just notice how the body can be a powerful resource and a powerful form of intervention.
And I noticed you use the word aware, which is very interesting because I feel like a lot of that self-training that becomes unconscious after a while, like wired into your body. But first it has to start with awareness. So could you share a little more about what instances as a teacher you find that awareness kicks in and then you are able to get more centered?
One of the first things, so when it comes to, I guess, working with kids, whether it's in a teacher role, because even parents are teachers in their own way too, it's just recognizing that something in me is frustrated or something in me wants to scream. Like, it's just recognizing that part of you that wants to do something. And that's just the words something in me are just powerful and transformative in and of itself too, because that shows that you're aware that something is actually happening. And so once that awareness comes into play, then we can take that breath and we can start to see the choices that are available to us. So I can either scream and say, get off your phone. How many more times do I have to tell you to do that? Or we can take a breath and just, give a chance for us to just calm down before talking about whatever needs to be discussed.
Absolutely. One of the other things I'm hoping to learn from you as you're talking about breath work and awareness, could you share some of the modalities that you've been able to apply and what you've brought up in your book as well in terms of mindfulness?
Yeah, when it comes to using our senses to bring ourselves to the present moment, mindfulness is definitely one of the big ones because our five senses are the most, I guess, the ones that we can sense more quickly. But then once we are able to bring ourselves back to the present moment, and one of the questions is that I ask myself sometimes is, where am I right now? Because sometimes I'm aware that I'm in my office doing this interview in my current self, but then there are other times when I may be feeling something else where I realize that I'm back in, like when I ask, where am I right now? I'll have an image of myself standing in front of my fourth grade classroom and just feeling humiliated after giving a presentation and having just blank stares at me. It's just like, it's when I have that fear of like talking in front of people and I get nervous, I realize that I'm not here right now. That old, nervous, younger me is here. And so one of the other modalities is to just kind of like tune in to just like where we are, and where our spirits, souls, and just energetically also like how we are feeling. So there's lots of modalities that I tap into. Some of them are just past life regression things. Some of them are energy healing things. Some of them are the breath work, or just visualization exercises and somatic exercises.
So a holistic combination of those.
Yes.
Absolutely. I know even in your book you mentioned Qigong, and I believe that even movement can help, particularly with any field nowadays when we sit at our computer, or even as a teacher, you may be in your classroom a lot. And these days, during the pandemic, a lot of teachers have been at home and more, I would say, under demand of trying to be present. So
Yeah.
kind of movement, right?
Yeah, especially with just sitting in front of the screen for so long, when our energies just become stagnant from such a sedentary lifestyle, it causes a lot of distress in the body. So it just kind of amplifies things. So if anxiety or fear were kind of undercurrents, they become bigger, or they just become more long lasting. So if it was, anxiety over like having to handle remote students and in-person students back last year when the big pandemic hit, it just kind of like exacerbates everything. And yeah, who knows what will happen in the future? Hopefully there won't be anything like that where everyone just goes completely remote again, but who knows?
Absolutely. So one in regards to healing and tuning in, could you share a little more about how authenticity of a teacher and tuning in ties with your book and how you made that connection? Because I feel like an undercurrent theme in your personality as well as beautiful, authentic energy.
So one of the things I mentioned is that being inauthentic backfired on me in my book, because when I first started teaching, I followed other people's advice, thinking that that was the way to go, such as don't smile in the first few months of school, make sure you have control over the students and show them who's in power. And so I just tried to become this strict disciplinarian, and it just totally backfired on me because I just became so miserable and my students became miserable. And it just, there were so many days where I cried or I wanted to quit. And now I realize like it didn't have to be that way. It just really didn't if I had just been myself. And the best moments in the classroom that I remember are times when I actually let my true self come through.
It's interesting you should say that. One of the things I recall in the brief time that I've been around teachers is the approach for teaching based on the culture can be very strict and authoritative or slightly more Zen-like. And I feel like your book is highlighting and emphasizing that the teachers can tune in and have a more authentic relationship. And by virtue, perhaps what is coming through is the teacher is preemptively making sure they don't get wounded in the field.
Yeah. When we come from a place of curiosity and compassion, it's so different. The classroom changes from like a battleground as to who's going to win this power struggle to, just out of curiosity. Why are you out of your seat? Even though I've asked you to sit down twice already. So when we come from a place of just like curiosity, the students and the energy just shifts. And instead of them seeing us as a threat to them, they see us as someone who is willing to try to understand them. And it just changes everything.
That is, it's particularly when you talk about not being a threat in the battleground, those words conjure up that level of negative energy. But what you're bringing in through your book are these techniques. And essentially what I'd like to ask you in regard to the techniques is if you had 3 words of wisdom for those who are reading your book, either as a teacher or as a coach, what 3 techniques or tips would you provide or insights in regards to healing and tuning in?
I guess the first one would be that in times of struggle, to just consciously and intentionally move from the head space to the heart space, and to just imagine the heart just kind of filling up with like the energy of compassion, and perhaps it's in the form of a golden yellow light. And just before speaking back to the other person, if you feel wronged, to just connect to the heart space and then allow for the soft voice from there to come out rather than the impulsive reactive self from the head. I guess the second one would be to just once again connect to the heart, even times of just when things are wonderful, just as to just be appreciative of the moment. Just like, wow, like I really, really appreciate the fact that I'm here, that I'm, like in this moment right now. And just because that's really important too. And then I guess the third one is to just trust that the wisdom that lives within your heart, within your body, and your mind can all connect and just allow for your wiser self to come through.
It's wonderful. Well, Julia, I believe this book will be instrumental in helping many. And I think we're entering an age where a lot of us are aware of the mind-body connection and going more deeper in a place of being centered, so that we may approach not only being a coach or a teacher, but a parent. I can tell you for sure, I've had moments where I have lost it.
Yeah.
We get better, but I think your book has some lovely things that will help future generations.
Yeah, it's funny because I was actually going to call the book The Centered Parent at first. I was actually going to write it for parents. And then I thought, okay, maybe I'll write another book for parents down the road called The Centered Parent. But essentially though, if you replace the word teacher and students with the word parent and kids, it really, the same principles and practices can apply.
Absolutely. Well, Julia, thank you so much for this interview. And I believe a lot of people will be looking forward to the book. Again, the title of the book, could you mention I believe it's The Centered Teacher. Yes, the title of the book is The Centered Teacher, a mind-body approach to overcoming fear and anxiety.
Yep, I have it right here. And yeah, I have it in a yellow background to represent the energy from the sun. And the word mind, body, heart are all together as one to show that interconnectedness that exists. Because in our Western culture, the mind is seen as something separate from the body most of the time. And that just the power behind everything gets lost. And so when we can integrate all three, we can start to feel more empowered and just live from a place of empowerment.
Absolutely. Again, I'm so grateful for your book, for your energy, and this opportunity to have this conversation with you.
Thanks again for tuning in. Check out the links in the description, and please subscribe, follow, and share. And continue to be omnipresent.